Welcome to the podcast. It starts with you, with me, Vic O'Farrell. I ask my guests, by understanding their own behaviours and personality style, what impact on their lives, both personally and professionally, has there been? What is it like to live and work with someone of your style? I mean, this is not about labelling people, putting people in boxes, or an excuse for bad behaviour. It's about recognising, understanding and respecting that we're all different. And what impact can you have on others by looking in the mirror? Because it starts with you. So here we are, episode 1 of It Starts With You, with me, Vicky O'Farrell. And I have got my most amazing podcast business coach with me, Amy Rowlinson. And the reason I've asked her to come on to do episode 1 with me, basically, is to turn the tables so that I can tell you what this is all going to be about. And Amy's going to ask me some questions so that she gets that out of me, because she's amazing like that. So, Amy, I'm going to pass over to you. Before I do, actually, if you haven't followed, and if you are a massive podcast listener, you probably already listened to Amy Rowlinson's Focus on Why. But if you haven't, that is one hell of a program to go and listen to. Really inspiring people.
Well, thanks, Vic. So, yeah, this is so exciting, and I'm delighted that I finally persuaded you to get into this whole medium of podcasting.
Oh, it's great to be here, and it's been on my list for a while, as you know. I just didn't have the kind of the headspace, I'd probably say, the bandwidth to put the time aside to do it.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because you said that you've been speaking to people and saying, do you listen to podcasts? And you've put posts out on LinkedIn and said, what do people listen to? And realized that actually it's probably just you that's not been listening to them. Lots of people have.
I know. And I think that's probably why I put it off, because I thought, I don't listen to podcasts myself. But then I thought, I don't want to attract people like me into my world, because I'm already in my world. So it's actually, I want to go and find all these other people. And you're absolutely right. The amount of people that listen to podcasts, I was shocked by it.
So tell me, It Starts With You. What's it all about?
Well, as you know, I am the Queen of Behaviours. The business is the Queen of Behaviours. And it's all about understanding what makes you do, say, and react the way that you do. The foundations of the business are based on the DISC personality profiling tool, but there's so much more to who we are than just our personalities. And if people really spent the time and asked, there's a great question that Rob answered on one of your when you did interviewed Rob May on your podcast, wasn't it? And he said, what's it like to be on the receiving end of you? And I love that. I absolutely love the way he says it. And I always think to myself, if you're irritated by someone, stop and ask yourself why. What is it about their behavior that is irritating you? Because quite often it says a lot about yourself. And that's why I say it starts with you, because you can't have an impact on someone else's behavior. You can't change anyone's behaviors. It's who they are. But what you can do is look in the mirror and understand your own behaviors and understand the impact that you have on other people, because they could be behaving and they could be irritating you, but you could also be irritating them, which is why they're behaving in such a way. We're humans. It's a real complex thing. Life is great, isn't it, until you add the human mix into it.
And you said there, look in the mirror and understand your behaviors. Are we not blind to what we see or hear or do?
Yes, until you are, we tend to go on life on what I call autopilot, just assuming that everyone else is like you. That's our natural stance. If you look at your close circle of friends, for example, you probably find you're all very similar style-wise, very similar behaviours. And it's when you're interacting with them that you're just in flow, aren't you? But then when you come across people who are very different to you, you have this like, oh, they're a bit quiet, they're a bit loud, they're a bit this, they're a bit that. We start, that whole unconscious bias starts appearing, and we start making assumptions about other people. And like I say, your circle of friends will generally be the same as you, very similar style to you, but you don't work with your friends, do you? You generally go to work and there's a whole other load of people there that you now need to understand what is it that makes them tick? And add on top of that, what we've been through as a country, as a world, actually, for the last 3-4 years, everything that's happened has really had major impacts on how people behave.
What was it like to be on the receiving end of you before versus now that you understand being the queen of behaviours that you are?
So if I look back, what this program will do, I'm just going off on a slight tangent there. This podcast is all about educating everybody on what personality profiling is and what behaviors are. And for me, my own personality profiling is I am what's known as an extreme I. So that I is on the outgoing side of the style, and it's also on the people side of the style. It's influential, it's being inspirational, interactive, interested in people. It's people. And I was referred to by the wonderful Bev James, actually. I'm hoping to get her as a guest. That I at one point during our training, and she just said to me, she said, "You are like the donkey from Shrek." So, oh, and we love Donkey from Shrek, don't we? Donkey from Shrek is amazing. But it was that constantly pick me, me. And so I looked back and reflected, and I've actually asked some people that I worked with previously, what was it like to work with me? I think probably exhausting came out. Irritating also did come out, which I was a bit like, oh, I suppose it starts with an I, that's fine. I think I was just too full on for some people. I didn't know my own style, so I didn't know how to turn the volume button up and down. And that can be the same with all personalities. You know, if you look at it in terms of a bit like the Johari window, you know, if you don't know what you don't know, you know, so that's why you have to start by looking in the mirror. Whereas now I've been doing this, I've been running this business now for 10 years, and I've specifically done just behaviours now for the last 5. I am so much more self-aware that I haven't changed who I am, but I hold myself back in a room. So I'm always learning, and I do lots of training and stuff like that still, and I'm being trained all the time. So if I'm, for example, when I did this podcast coaching with you, it's a program, and we're all on Zoom, and it's a program for all of us. And you'd ask a question, and I'm very conscious not to always be the first person to put your hand up. And I always was prior to knowing this, I was just always like, oh yeah. Not, I think, for any other reason than I just always felt like I wanted to add something. I wanted to fill the gap of space and silence, because to someone like me, quiet needs to be filled. Which is, you know, that's just me. But to some people who like quiet and silence, they don't want people to fill it.
And you mentioned exhausting, irritating, and too full on. There was probably some positive elements as well.
My personality is contagious. I bring in energy. I am wonderful to be around. I'm warm. I've been told that I light up a room when I walk in. And I just suppose I generally focus on the things that I can fix that perhaps irritate people, as opposed to actually, yeah, there's all these positives. And I am who I am. This is the thing. And I say this to everyone, my clients, even friends and family. You cannot change who you are. This is your personality. You just have to be aware of it. Because when you're with people who are different styles to you, different behaviours to you, different core values to you, you just need to make sure that you adjust yourself. Not change, don't change who you are, but just adjust and be aware of it, because it might be rubbing someone up the wrong way.
And does it make you any less authentic by changing that volume up or down?
Oh God, no, I think it makes you even more authentic, because you are that in tune with yourself. You're so in tune with other people. I am going to make sure that I get the best out of this situation by either, you know, dialing up or dialing down in that specific situation. You know, when I first walk into a room, I am who I am, and until I've worked out who everyone else is, I won't change. I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I know I won't be. As Julie Creffield says, otherwise you'd be a mug. But you can't please everybody. You can't be everybody's cup of tea. You just can't do it.
And is an I a people pleaser?
Very much so. Very much so. We have a fear of rejection. So we want to make sure everyone's happy and that everyone is, friends with us and everyone likes us. But I've come to understand that that's not the case. And people unfollow me on Instagram, and that's okay. I don't have to be liked by everybody.
Is that hard for you, Vic?
It was very hard. I still get it now. I probably, depending on when the moon cycle is, but I do get it now, that I'm just like, oh, why doesn't that work? There's 100 people that have given me really, really great feedback, and they've enjoyed my class or enjoyed my talk or enjoyed something. And there's the one person that didn't. And I want to fix the one person. But what I've learned to do is no, take away the top 5% and the bottom 5%, because you'll always have your fans and you'll always have the people who are the critics, and focus on the middle and stop trying to fix everybody, because I can't.
And is that why it starts with you?
Yeah, because you have to start by looking in the mirror at your own style and really understand you. Because once you understand you can then learn to understand everybody else. And I say it's about adapting your own style to get the best out of people, not changing who you are.
So tell me, personality tools, everyone loves doing a quiz, doing a test, getting the results, especially if it's a quick one and then it looks really accurate. Why this particular tool? Why DISC?
Why DISC? So as I was doing my coaching qualification with the Coaching Academy, part of that is to do a day on DISC. And I did this day with Dave Pill from the Coaching Academy. And it was like a light bulb went off for me, because in the corporate world, I've done all of the others, Myers-Briggs, Belbin, Clarity 4D. I've done all of them, but none of them ever stuck with me. I'd have the day's workshop, and then, the next day I'd go back to just being me. I never really took anything on. But when I did this DISC day, it was just this massive light bulb. And I was just like, oh my God, this is me. This is what my business is all about. So whilst as a coach, I don't promote myself as a coach, because I just focus on behaviours, and it's just all about this, because DISC to me is simple and easy to remember. Well, it is the way I train it. Other people may disagree, but I believe the way that I deliver it, the feedback that I've got from my clients, and also the amount of repeat clients that I have that come back time and time again, to me says that it's the one that works for them.
So tell me a bit more about the work you do with people, with companies, with individuals.
So most of my clients are the corporate clients, and most of it has come from word of mouth and recommendation. I will do a day's masterclass, which really hones down the DISC profiling, the personality profiling, because that's the foundations of the business. And it's getting the whole room to really understand. And it's fun. It's not me talking to people for a whole day. It's interactive. There's some reflections. There's some, I call it a game to play, but it's not. It's me just basically being able to observe whether you've actually picked up and learned everything that we've talked about in the day. And that's the foundation that it starts with. And then I will go back and I do all of those other layers of what makes us human. So I look at core values and boundaries, because you could have the same personality as somebody else, but if your core values are completely different, there could also be potential conflict there. So again, same personality, different values, potential conflict. Boundaries, depending on where those values sit, and if I find out what someone's like one true core value is, okay, where does that sit in your boundaries? And if it sits in like the rigid, the fixed, I'm not moving from that could be unhealthy. And it's just like I say, it's like you've got an onion, and I say an onion because they're really thin layers, aren't they? If you take it back to the core and then you start putting all of those layers back on, so that from the outside an onion looks like the next onion. I look like somebody else that's human, white with dark hair. Yet actually when you've peeled those layers back, you find that we're very different. That's what I do. I also then overlay. So I've got 3 associates that work with me as well, Stephen, Anita, and Ben, and they have their own specialist areas. They're all DISC trained, and they all start with the foundations of DISC, but then they overlay things like well-being, culture, not just geographical culture, but company culture as well. And then diversity, equity, and inclusion. And all of these, again, have an impact on what makes us human. The more we understand, well, it's about recognizing, understanding, and respecting our differences. Because the more you can, the easier you find it is to get through this thing called life.
And we've recorded an episode before on Focus on Why. It's a brilliant episode. Highly recommend people go and listen to that. And you talk about this recognizing and understanding and respecting, and this one thing that we have called life. What is it that you're bringing to the world, and why in this respect?
I want the world to know that every human person is different to another human person. We have different DNA. We're all different, but we all add value. And that is then understanding what it is that somebody who is polar opposite to me, what is the value that they bring? Why do I need them in my life? Even as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, but whatever you are, you need to get along with either your clients, your prospects. You might have somebody from the gig economy. You go along in life. Human beings are not solitary. So we will always be interacting with other people. The more you can understand why someone is behaving in a certain way, the more that you can accept it. Because we're all different and we've all got to get along. One lap of this thing called life.
One lap indeed. And, that's an undefined lap. We don't know how long that lap's going to be.
No one knows their expiry date. So you're in the lane. You're in charge, and if you're not happy with the direction, then indicate and change lanes. Go somewhere else. It's your life. It starts with you.
It does start with you. And you mentioned earlier about the working with people and recognizing their core values, their boundaries, and where there may be conflict in that. How about your own core values and your boundaries and any potential conflict you've experienced?
Oh, yeah. So I would say I've probably got two core values that are at the highest, which is honesty and fairness. And they probably sat too hard in the rigid, that sometimes I just need to accept that some people are a bit different. Time used to be a massive one for me. If people were late for a meeting, I just, for anything, even socially, meeting friends for a drink, you're meeting at 8:00 and someone turns up at 8:05, you're late. So automatically because it was in the rigid, I'm just annoyed, and my personality has changed because of that. So I've learned to let that go, because I've learned to know that other people don't have time as a core value. My husband is probably, sorry if you listen to this, Mark, but come on, how many times do we go, right, I get everywhere early just because I can't bear being late? And quite often he leaves everything a bit late. So we do sometimes get to places late. So I have learned over the times to let that one go. Honesty, though, no, I'm about being honest and open. If you've got to tell me something that I'm probably not going to like, then just tell it to me, and as soon as possible, and let's deal with it. And fairness is just because there's so much unfairness in this world. I can't fix it, but if I could play my little part to help other people recognize the differences, then I feel like I've done my bit.
And that is so interesting, the element of time that used to irritate you. It's very much linked to respect, isn't it? You saw it as if they are late, they're not respecting me, and disassociating that your self-worth is not related to their untimeliness is a big thing for sure.
It's massive. It is massive, yeah. Because it would just put me. I just found that anytime anyone was late, it put me in the wrong space. to then deal with that meeting, with whatever we were doing. So I've learnt to let it go. It's a big thing, isn't it? I mean, I asked the question to you in terms of your values. You know, what would you say your core value was of the one thing that you is non-negotiable?
Oh, non-negotiable is an interesting one. I think it's for me, it's linked to diversity and connectedness. It's understanding the importance of what you bring to the table. You said earlier about the value that people bring. And for me, it's recognizing that we're not here to go it alone. No. And it's so important to see how we can offer what we have, but also accept what others have to give. And for me, I used to always want to do favors for people, and especially as a mum, I would always say, oh, how can I help? What can I do? And then when somebody asked me what they could do to help me, I was always, oh, no, I'm fine. And it was like that sort of very British, I'm okay. And then they turned around to me and they said, but don't you understand that you are denying me the opportunity to do what you're doing, which is give?
Yeah.
And that was a really big learning. I was like, oh gosh, yes, of course. It is that whole giving to receiving, and understanding that other people get a huge fulfillment from doing just what I was doing. So yeah, it's about connectedness. I think it's about understanding just how important it is to see that mutual relationship and not be one-sided. Don't be the martyr. You know, really understand that there are a lot of ways that people want to help in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the helping. It's the I mean, my husband would tell you straight away as well. I am very stubborn. I think that's the Taurian in me as well. See, that's another thing. We can overlay lots of things onto what makes it. And if I'm trying to do something and I can't do it, like simple things like, oh, I don't know, put a screw in the wall or something, and it's not going in properly, and Mark be like, would you like me to help you? I'm like, no, I will. And I can be like that. And sometimes I have learned to just go, yeah, it's a bit like the Frozen song, isn't it? Let it go. Just, okay, let someone else who has better skills to deal with it take over, because I can't do everything and be everything to everyone. It's not physically possible. It's exhausting.
It's funny, how many sort of Disney or Pixar films can we mention in one episode? But so far we've had we've had Shrek, and now we've had Frozen. And it's funny because as soon as you were talking about onions, I was thinking, well, isn't that the whole conversation between Shrek and Donkey? And Shrek says ogres are like onions. We have layers. I was loving that. It's brilliant.
Yeah. No, well, there's the song, isn't there? The world is just a great big onion.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, well, I'm not going to sing it because basically I don't think I'd really use the term singing what comes out of my mouth. But yeah, I will find it and send it to you. I'll put it in the show notes.
See, who knew that we were going to have a song about onions in the show notes for this episode?
No
the
idea.
Resources are endless, Vic. The resources are brilliant.
Exactly.
Going back to your why, and it starts with you, the purpose of this show. What is it that you seek to bring to your listener?
I seek to bring education, but fun. This is not a training podcast. You're not going to sit here and I'm not going to be telling you, you know, what the D stands for, because to be quite frank, that's boring and dull. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite guests on where I know their personality style. I've either worked with them, they're other speaker friends, or they're coach friends, they're clients that I've had. And I'm going to interview them about what it means for them in terms of understanding what their style is, how I could best work with them. So, for example, you know, if I had a very heavy D style CEO, I'd be asking them questions about what does it mean when somebody needs to approach you? How should they approach you? So that people could go and listen to this, because it'll all be in the show notes about what style they are, so that people could think, okay, well, I'm going to go and work for a CEO that's D style. I'd like to listen to that. Or I've got a CEO that's D style and I need to approach them. Let me go and listen to that so that I know how to approach them. Because if you approach people in the way that they want to be approached, I mean, there's the famous saying, is it treat others how you wish to be treated? I'm like, no, treat others how they wish to be treated. It's so much easier. Get more out of it. So that's really what it is. It's an educational podcast, but just from an interview perspective of like, what's it like to be, what's it like for me to be an ID? I know that it's very outgoing, and therefore I know that if somebody needs to come and talk to me, I'm like, just talk to me. Pick the phone up. I love a good old-fashioned phone call, and come and talk to me, because it's that outgoing and it's the people side of things. Whereas I know if I'm dealing with somebody who is reserved and far more on the task side of things, they probably like a structured email, just different style. No right or wrong. And that's what this is. It's no right or wrong. It's not labeling. It's not putting people in boxes. It's recognizing, understanding, and respecting our differences.
And I think that's really key, because at the foundation, yes, you do use a personality tool, which could be seen as putting people into boxes or labeling them as one of the 4 personality types. But that is simply the starting point.
Yes. And we aren't just one style. We're a blend of all of them. And we can be any of the styles. So whilst that my C style, which is the reserved and task focused, that's way low, because the opposing or the opposite style is the I style. It doesn't mean to say I can't be quiet and do detail. I can be quiet and do detail, but I need to be in the right frame of mind to do that, because if I had to do it every day, I just find it exhausting. I can't do it every day, but I can do it. So we can be different styles. It's just, what is your natural flow, and are you aware of it?
And you said earlier, it's not about changing who you are.
No.
Okay. And you even said that actually the difference between dialing up and down actually makes you more authentic, and understanding what you bring to the table is key. What I wanted to really sort of pick on is the element of what you don't know, and we go back to the Johari window elements of what is it that you want people to do as a result of this.
I want people to become aware of their own style and look at them. That's why it starts with you, because you've got to look in the mirror and be really aware of your own style, and then aware of situations that you might need to dial up or dial down. When you're with, autopilot, you are who you are. When you're with your friends, this is what you're doing. But especially in a business environment, and to reduce conflict, because that's the biggest thing. You feel like you get off the wrong side with someone. It's like, okay, well, let's redraw the baseline and let's start again. So once you know your own style, you know what to do, but you can also then read other people. You'll start picking up on the language that they use, their body language, things like that, and you can start to mirror. I mean, they always say, like in sales, for example, mirror the person's body language to build rapport. It's like, well, actually, that can actually be quite patronizing and condescending. Oh, I've leant forward. Oh, I've leant back. Sorry for those of you who are not watching the YouTube. I just started leaning forward and leaning back. And it's not about that. It's about the tonality of your voice, the words that you use, the volume of your voice, because I can talk very loudly, but actually if I'm with someone who's more reserved, I know that I soften my voice. I just naturally do it now because I'm very, very aware of things. But that's what I want people to understand. And if they want to know more, then it's getting in touch, getting and looking at all the programs that I run and saying, actually, I want to go deep with this. And how do I learn more about it?
To cast your mind back to that moment when you had that day's training, learning the tool, did you at that point see where it was going to take you?
No, I didn't see it. I just had a feeling. I just had that kind of, you might think it's a bit woo-woo, it's a bit spiritual, but it was like, this is it. This is what I'm all about. I am just going, this is now the foundation of my business. And then, I mean, Queen of Behaviours was only born in lockdown, to be honest, because I had the time to rebrand, and everything online got so noisy. I needed to stand out, and I wasn't standing out. So I worked with my other amazing business coach, we both know, Julie Creffield, and the Queen of Behaviours was born, because it says, it also says what it does on the tin, a bit like Ronsil, isn't it? It does what it says on the tin. It's all about behaviours, because we're far more than just our personalities.
And what is the vision, mission, and the underlying why for the Queen of Behaviours?
I am building this brand to be bigger than me, which is why it's not my name. I want to leave a legacy, and I want people to just, when they think of behaviours, they think of the Queen of Behaviours. When they think of personality profiling, when they think of anything to do with that part of a business world where there's people, there's a need for this business. Because like I say, the clients that I work with, I go back time and time and time again. When they have new starters, I put the new starters through the program. I go back and do a refresher, because it's, I live and breathe this. But if you just do this as a one-off program and that's it, senses are you'll just go back to your normal ways. It's got to be something that's ingrained. And it's, like I say, it's not putting you in a box, and it's not telling you to change who you are. It's just giving you the mirror. Self-awareness starts with you. You just get it just helps, makes life so much easier.
I love the title of the show. It really does, as you just said, Ronsil, it's what it is. It starts with you, and it then goes on to create incredible things. So where is this podcast going to be taking us from here?
So I've got guests lined up, and like I say, I'm going to be asking that, just like you've done to me about the podcast and my behaviours, I'm going to be asking my guests, what is it about your profile that made you realise that things need to be adapted in certain situations, not changing who we are. And then I want it to be so that I can highlight the different personality styles, so that people could then go and search for it. So if I'm typically I'm I style, do I want to go and listen to other I styles talk? Actually, from an educational point of view, probably not. I want to go and listen to the polar opposite to me, which is the high C's. I want to go and listen to them, because they'll educate me on what it is that they need from communication.
So there is that perfect blend of education and fun, because I know you said you don't want it to be a dull podcast, sort of
No.
highlighting this is a D, and a D is this, and this is an I, and an I is this is an S. I feel like I'm just going to break into disco in a moment.
No, I don't want it to be like, I've listened to some other podcasts, and they're like training podcasts. No, that does, and it doesn't work for me. It might work for other people, but this is a conversation between two people who are very aware of their own behaviours and the impact it's had on their life, being able to be aware of your behaviour style. And when you become self-aware, it's so powerful. It really is powerful and impactful in the business world, definitely, because you find that you start watching, and again, complete tangent here, but the newsletter that went out today, which is, what day is it? The 14th of April. I'd written something around a piece of the David Attenborough's Green Planet, because he did these things. There was the brambles came out, and then the nettles came out, then the brambles came out, then the dodder, 4 different styles. And I sat there, Mark was my husband, that is, just looked at me and went, "You're profiling plants now, aren't you?" I know, it's fascinating, but you do. I profile everything, anything that lives. I kind of go, oh yeah, kind of think where they sit.
That is fascinating, and yes, your newsletter is fabulous, so I highly recommend people go and find that. I'm sure you put a link in the show notes to it for them. As a result of listening to this, what would you like your listener to do? Do you want them to reach out, connect with you? How would they, what do they need to do now, Vic?
Yeah, they need to listen to the podcast, share episodes, and say, oh wow, what did I get out of it? Obviously, it would be lovely if you could go and leave me a 5-star review at the bottom too. Watch, if you're somebody that likes to watch things, these are all going to go onto YouTube as well. And reach out to me if you think that your organization or a group of people, perhaps you are a solopreneur and you think, actually there's a few of us that could get together, I'd like to find out more. Visit the website queenofbehaviours.com. Get in touch with me, Vic at queenofbehaviours.com, and let's have a conversation, because it starts with you and it starts with me.
Sounds like a perfect place to wrap up.
It does, doesn't it? Amy, thank you so much for coming on and being my first guest to turn the tables as well and interview me, so that I can let everyone know what this. I am genuinely really excited to see how this impacts on people and what it is that people can understand. I just see it when I talk to clients that just say, I love it, because it's made them and it's helped them in their personal life too. I had one lady with a client, and she said to me, she went, since that first day you did it, she said, I've got a far better understanding of my husband and our relationship has improved. I mean, how can I not love that? It's why, you know, on your podcast, your why, your purpose, I ask people, or if people ask me, should I say, how do you know when you found your purpose? I say, would you still do what you do if we didn't need money in the world? Yep, you didn't need to earn money. Would you still do what you do? And if the answer is yes, you found your purpose. And my purpose is behaviours. I found my yes. How has this conversation had an impact on you? What have you learnt? What will you do differently? Do leave a review on Apple or Spotify on It Starts With You podcast. And also leave a comment down below. Do also then connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And why not even join the Facebook group It Starts With You and keep the learning ongoing. Thank you for listening.